IVM.
Hello, this is Chuck, who's interrupting his own podcast to bring you this promo. And that's how much we want to thank Intel for supporting the show. Thank you, guys. Intel's a brand that I have admired for a very long time, and it's absolute pleasure having them supporting the nonsense that we do on Simplified. This week, we are going to continue our discussion on the benefits of their vPro platform. That's VPRO. This week, we discuss manageability. Those of you who have read Dilbert will know that management is the place where idiots are promoted because that's a place where they can do least amount of damage. This is not that type of manageability. Manageability in the Intel vPro platform refers to active management technology, or AMT, which allows you to discover, repair, and manage computing assets. This means features like remote power on and remote scheduling updates and recovering faulty systems without sending a tech. That would be so damn useful. It's so much easier when we can manage computers remotely. I remember, in my old company, we had an issue with hardware where people just be sitting around waiting for a tech guy to show up. Although it was during one of those sessions that the idea for Simplified was born. So this is kind of like a self-defeating promo, but that's okay. Manageability with Intel vPro allows you to make the most of your time and resources, making remote management of your workforce IT infrastructure powerful and efficient. And you can learn more about how to do this at intel.in/vpro. That's VPRO. On with the show. Hello and welcome to Simplified. And Naren, I never thought this day would come. We have finally reached the end of our 150th episode.
Yes.
In fact, we could possibly put all the 150th episodes together and we would beat out Amit Verma and his 33-year marathons. So there. But so for those who are just tuning in, we turned 150 recently, and we decided to celebrate by not doing any work of our own and asking you guys to send in questions for burning questions that have been consuming you since the birth.
Such as what lies
behind the eponymous Choli of the song. And many other more fascinating and intellectual questions, I assure you. And we've had an absolute blast over the last 5 episodes, answering them. I'm Chuck.
I'm Naren.
And Shriketh is somewhere, but he's not in
working hard, contributing to economies of the world. And we wish him best. And he'll be back.
He'll be back
next episode.
He'll be back next episode. So we are done with all the audience questions, and thank you to all of you guys who sent them in. There are some questions that we think warrant a full episode by themselves, so we'll see what to do with them later. And sort of like a pretext to those is what I'm going to do over here, which is one of these questions I thought actually deserved a full episode by itself. When I started writing out the answer, I realized this is going to be more than 10-15 minutes, or it would take that much amount of time, which is too much when you're talking about 3 or 4 questions. And this has actually been sent in by a fellow host on the IVM network. They've sent in quite a few. It was part of their contracts. We snuck it in without them seeing this, the benefit of being one of the first shows on the network. This comes in from Sivaram from the IVM show Football Shootball. Sivaram, what would you like to know?
Hi, my name is Sivaram and I'm the host of Football Shootball. My question is, like Luxottica has so many brands under it that we probably don't know about. Like there's Ray-Ban and Persol, but all of them are actually Luxottica. What are some of these huge players in the market that have many brands and we have no clue that they actually own the entire market?
Naren, this has been a question that I've been dying to research on for a long time, actually. Do you, like off the top of your head, do you know any that you can think of?
I know about Luxottica, of course.
Yeah.
And what else is... No, I can really.
There are so many, okay. So here's the thing: a lot of this is extremely surprising. So yes, of course, Luxottica is a good example.
It was an article in I don't know, the New Yorker or something. Somewhere I read it somewhere.
Yeah, and the thing is, you will find like these infographics, the 6 companies that own everything that you do and things like that. Which, well, I'm not going to place an opinion on whether that's good or bad, because, they do bring economies of scale and what have you. But my idea for this episode was just to hopefully surprise some of you guys by not knowing that, wow, this company does A and B, for instance, right? So let's jump right into it. Like, for example, it won't be very surprising for you to know that Luxottica has both Oakley and Ray-Ban, for instance, because they're both like high-end high-end eyewear. Just to complete that train of thought, they also make eyewear for some luxury brands like Armani, Exchange, Burberry, Bulgari, Chanel, D&G, Versace, Tiffany, and Prada. That is, they don't own these brands; they make the eyewear products only for these brands. This is interesting, however. You wear glasses, Naren, so you would know a brand called Essilor that makes lenses. Yeah. Luxottica recently announced a merger with Essilor. So that means a combined entity would command more than 1/4 of global value sales of eyewear.
Wow.
That I thought was pretty interesting.
And that is one field.
Yeah.
So I know this because one guy who has a factory near where my factory is, and makes spectacle frames for the low-end market, right? So poor people also need to wear glasses. Not everyone can. And according to him, a spectacle frame costs about 10 rupees to manufacture.
Okay.
And it's the same for all these people. And none of us spend less than a few thousand rupees on them.
Yeah. The things that branding can do for you. That MBA degree of yours has. You see what it's used for now. Okay. So I don't know what to call these type of companies. You want to call them like parent companies? You want to call them conglomerates, or whatever whatever they are. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some categories and I'm going to tell you the biggest players within them, and I'll tell you the brands that they have within them. One of the biggest categories you'll find is FMCG, or fast moving consumer goods, as we B school types are taught to learn, which is basically your companies like HUL and P&G that own a whole lot of shit that you will have between your kitchen and your toilet, hopefully not at the same time. You should not have nor soup on the pot, and you should ideally not use Head and Shoulders while in the kitchen. You could, but results might not be what you were looking for. Let's start with P&G. They have some massive brands, including Ambipure, Ariel, Gillette, Head and Shoulders, Olay, Oral-B, Pampers, Pantene, Tide, Vicks, and Whisper. They also have Braun and Old Spice. So that's a lot of big brands that P&G own. Unilever is one of the kings.
Big daddies of
absolute big daddies. So I'm going to have to take a deep breath for this one. There's Annapurna. There's Ben & Jerry. There's Brook Bond, Brew, Kisan, Knorr, Lipton, Marmite. For all you Aussie listeners over there. Oh, yes, Mohan, I know you're listening. Then there is Quality Walls, and this is only food so far.
Yeah. And I bet, I didn't know Quality Walls belong to it.
Yeah, it does. Then in home care and beauty and personal care, they have so many. They have Axe, Ayush, Brylcreem, Brute, Clear, Clinic, Close Up, Comfort, Dove, Fair and Lovely, Lakme, Lifebuoy, Liril, Lux, Omo, Pierce, Pepsodent, Pond's, Rexona, Sunsilk, Surf, Tony and Guy, Tresemme, Vaseline, and Wheel. And they've even bought up Dollar Shave Club. If you remember that cool little independent, thing that's now not an HUL brand, it's a Unilever brand. So it's global.
Even HUL has become... it's
HUL is, yeah. They also own a couple of... Unilever, interestingly, Hindustan Unilever, interestingly, owns like a appliance. Well, if you can call it an appliance, it's Pureit, which is the water purifier, which is an HUL product, and they also own Lakme salons because of the brand and things like that. And a lot of these, by the way, when I say this company owns this brand, doesn't necessarily mean that it is incubated within their laboratories or something. A lot of these times, these brands are just bought over by these companies. Like, for example, Brylcreem had a huge legacy before it was bought over by somebody who sold it to somebody who eventually sold it to Unilever. And today, Brylcreem is a Unilever Unilever brand. Whether that's a good or bad thing is a discussion for another time. But largely it seems to have worked out well for all these guys because, economies of scale and all that.
No, one thing is large companies like Unilever bring a lot of product development skills too.
Yeah.
So they, in general, though not always, I'm looking at you, Johnson & Johnson, they usually make it safer.
Yeah. Wow, that's 2 jibes at J&J so far. Nice. Okay, Nestle is another huge one, and many times we forget, but Nestle is actually the world's largest food company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
apparently.
even bigger than, I mean, it's into food more than shampoos and
Shampoos,
whatnot.
yeah. So Nestle, come to think of it, I can't actually think of a non-food Nestle product. It has Nesquik, Nestea, Ovaltine, Nescafe. It's got a perpetual license for Starbucks in a lot of countries, which contributes to a large part of its revenue, even though Starbucks is not a Nestle brand. It's got expensive water like Perrier. It's got a lot of stuff that's filled with sugar, with Cheerios, a lot of chocolate like After Eight, Chips Ahoy, Kit Kat, Milky Bar, Munch, Polo, we often forget. Then there's Smarties, the original gems, Häagen-Dazs, Movenpick, Coffee Mate, Milo, Boost even is a Nestle brand, which I did not know. It's got some infant foods like Cerelac and Nido and Gerber, which is the big one in the US. And interestingly, it's also got Maggi, which we many times forget. Maggi is a Nestle brand, so everything that comes with it from noodles to sauces is under Nestle. Here's the interesting thing about Nestle. It also owns a lot of pet food, including Purina and Friskies. Another interesting thing about Nestle is that Nestle owns 30% of L'Oreal.
Oh.
Yeah, so that gives it those brands like Lancome and YSL, Yes Saint Laurent.
Yves Saint Laurent.
L'Oreal Paris, Garnier, Maybelline, Vichy, all these things. And also L'Oreal makes a whole bunch of perfumes for luxury brands like Armani, Diesel, Ralph Lauren, and things like that. Then there is Pepsi and Coke, who have a huge bunch of brands under them. There's nothing really surprising over here because if I ask even the random person on the street to name 5 brands from each, I think they would be able to name them.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not really getting into that. A lot of, if you didn't know, Lay's is owned by Pepsi.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing most people would know that. So is Doritos, hence making Pepsi I think on this, preference between the two for stoners, you would know which side they would tilt towards. Interestingly, Coca-Cola owns Bacardi mixers, which I thought was kind of interesting. All right, and okay, so let's move away from FMCG and food and things like that. I want to talk about a company that's very interesting called General Electric, who has owned a whole bunch of things right since Edison thought, hey, let's screw over Nikola Tesla and start a new company. The primary businesses of GE are things that like GE Capital, GE Energy, GE Energy, there's oil and gas, power, healthcare, aviation, etc., etc. Interestingly, GE used to own all of NBC, which is now sold to Comcast. So that's NBC, MSNBC, and it still co-owns Universal Studios, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about media, and this is a particularly interesting space to follow right now because there's a huge load of consolidation and mergers and stuff that are happening. And quite frankly, it's sometimes very difficult to keep up with respect to who owns who, purely because there are lots of things that are happening. You suddenly, the parent companies merge and then you realize that, this thing and that thing are now under the same family. So right now, the big daddy when it comes to media is Disney. They own a lot of things. They own ABC. They own an 80% stake in ESPN. They own Marvel. They own Lucasfilm. So the whole Star Trek thing is there. They own the History Channel. They own Pixar, Hollywood Records. They own a 10% stake in Vice. And in India, for what it's worth, they own UTV.
Wow.
They also own Discovery, Animal Planet, Hulu, Nat Geo, 20th Century Fox, and Sky PLC, a small player who might be responsible for broadcasting a lot of sports in the UK especially. So that's a whole bunch of things. So when Disney merged with Fox earlier this year, that's 2019 for people who are listening in 2087. So I'm just reading from the article itself. When Disney buys Fox, there's a great risk of potential media monopolies. Popular Disney assets like ESPN would be owned by the same company that owns its major competitor, Fox Sports. ABC and Fox News would also compete and be owned by the same company. Some aspects of Fox will be split off into their own company, now nicknamed Diet Fox. Even so, this would increase the things that Disney owns in our pop culture. Shows like The Simpsons, American Horror Story, American Idol, Family Guy, films like Alien, Home Alone, Avatar, Deadpool, and Independence Day, and massively important media brands like Nat Geo and Hulu. So basically, what you're saying is Disney controls a whole bunch of the pop culture that we are consuming right now, even though we may or may not know it. Although many people choose to look at this in a positive light and say that there might be collaborations. I, for one, would love to see like a Deadpool and Simpsons collaboration, for instance. So who knows? Maybe that's a good thing. Like I said, I don't want to comment on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. They also have an investment.
But the thing is, this is how the market works. And if it happens that way, it happens.
It happens that way. Interestingly, Disney also has an investment arm which has a whole bunch of things, but their most famous, so the company's name is called Steamboat Ventures. Their two most famous investments, one is a company called Photo Bucket, which is sort of like a Flickr competitor, and GoPro.
Wow.
So that's pretty interesting. Now we will move to another space that is very, very ripe for not consolidation, but like many brands under one roof, and that's automobile. And at times it's very interesting to see what brands are owned by whom. In the US, there is General Motors, which owns Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac. Things get a lot more interesting when you move to Europe, obviously. There's a Volkswagen group that owns the eponymous Volkswagen. There's Audi, or as Haryana pronounces, Savade. There's Skoda, there's Bentley, there's Bugatti, Lamborghini, Porsche, and Ducati. So that's a whole bunch of your most idolized brands that's owned by Volkswagen. Then there's Daimler that owns Maybach, Mercedes-Benz, and you would think that Maybach, Mercedes-Benz, and then luxury, but then they own something called Smart Car, which is the car that Tata Nano always wanted to be, but never could be. Smart is a really cute little car that's made for cities, and I think it's fully electric also. So that's automobile. Second, lastly, another sort of industry where you have a lot of brands under one family roof is alcohol. And here the big daddy is Anheuser-Busch InBev. I have no idea how to pronounce that properly. This conglomerate has a crazy number of your favorite brands and, well, some that are just absolute filth. Budweiser, I leave it to the reader to figure out which category that falls into. There's Michelob, Corona, Stella Artois, Beck's, Leffe, Hoegaarden, or Hoegaarden, as we tend to call it. There's a brand called Brahma, which I've never heard of. I must say, a whole bunch of things actually. Then, and Jupiler, which was very popular in Belgium when I went there. It's basically the KF of the Western Europe.
What's it called?
Jupiler.
Okay.
It's like Jupiter, but the T becomes an L. Then Mars, if you remember Mars chocolates, Mars owns Snickers, Bounty, Mars itself. But what's interesting about Mars is it owns some of the biggest pet food brands in the world, including Whiskas for cats and Pedigree for dogs.
Oh.
So the same company that makes Bounty makes
whom we are in fiction start a plan to take on someday. So Chuck and I are planning to make a pet food brand one of these days. Stay tuned.
Okay. And lastly, one of India's biggest conglomerates, bringing together some of our favorite brands: Simplified, Seen and the Unseen, The Origin of Things, Cyrus Says, Varta Labs, What a Player, Geek Fruit, Shunya One, Rediscovery, Project Pragati Podcast, and many, many more. We are, of course, talking about IVM. Yes. And I don't think we can end this on any other note. So that's to answer the question which was asked. These are some examples of other conglomerate companies that own a whole bunch of brands. Basically, the way I look at this is the brands are typically more famous than the parent company by itself. I'm sure there are several more examples if you dig around. And if you do have some that are pretty interesting, especially like, hey, did you know the same company owns A and B? I always think those type of things are particularly interesting. Do send them across to the three of us. And that's all we officially have now for the 150th episode. I'm gonna miss these episodes now.
But there's nowhere in the Constitution of India is it written you cannot do it again. So we will do
fair
it
enough.
again.
So we'll carry on with our 156th or 7th episode or whatever it is, and we'll come back to the 150th episode when we have more questions from you guys.
So stay cool, stay consolidated and stay simplified.
Yes.
Hi guys, this is Ayushi.
And I am Ritasha.
And welcome to Agla Station Adulthood.
It's a fun podcast we've got going on, and we'd love for you to tune in and enjoy with us.
Join us as we stop at various stations and discuss different topics that seem to be bothering us and hopefully you as well.
Relationships, beauty, just being an adult, lots of different things.
We don't have a great grip on it, but we've done okay so far.
Catch Agla Station Adulthood every Thursday on the IVM app, the IVM website, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
How many times have you caught yourself Googling stuff on health and wondering if it's the right information? How many times have you heard different health experts give opposing views, which has only left you confused? There are rising cases of cancer, heart, diabetes, stress, and autoimmune diseases. Meet the patients and the experts who paved the path of true healing. Join me, Rachna Chachi, cancer nutrition coach and nutritional therapist on Heal and Hearty. I take you through my own journey of recovery from an incurable disease and the journey of so many others who healed only via nutrition and holistic healing. Find the answers you seek for what's good for your health and what's good for your soul. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. Don't forget your date with good health.